I'm George Barnett with International Abrasives. I just wanted to get some information out to the general public about grinding wheels, and I figured the best place to start is the grinding wheel shape. Whenever you're describing your grinding wheel, whether you're purchasing one, whether you're selling one, you always have to have the proper dimensions and information to convey to the manufacturer so they know what they're making for you, so you don't wait 6, 8, 12, 14, 16 weeks and get a wheel that's incorrect. There's nothing more frustrating than that. We're going to have charts of all the typical grinding wheel shapes. There's a real good chart that I have which lists all the shapes, some of which we're not even going to deal with today. Probably the 6 or 7 shapes that I will describe to you today are covering 90% of the business, frankly. So what we're trying to really do here is, like the companies that we deal with, our distributors, our salespeople, they're getting calls from customers. And a lot of the times, these folks in these distribution houses that we work through, they're not really familiar with the grinding wheel aspects, so they're not really comfortable even talking about it. And we're trying to give enough information so that everyone understands is on the same page when trying to sell the product. So we are going to start with the most simplest of grinding wheel shapes. It is called the Type 1 wheel. This wheel has nothing on the sides other than flat grinding wheel, nothing on the outside other than flat grinding wheel, nothing on the hole other than flat grinding wheel. And that, of course, will be in the shapes list that we're going to display throughout this video. To start off, since this is a Type 1 wheel, when you're describing a grinding wheel, again, to your customer or to who you're buying it from, you want to describe the dimensions of the wheel first off. That is most important. And it's important to give that information in the proper order. A lot of folks make this mistake, so please listen carefully. On a grinding wheel, the OD means outside diameter. This is an 8-inch outside diameter. Next, very important, you go OD, then the width of the wheel, then the hole of the wheel. Very simple. OD, width, hole. So don't forget that. If you, like say, I've had this happen a lot. Someone will call and want a 20-inch by 8-inch by 2-inch. So immediately I know they put the width at the bottom of the geometry, and that is, of course, incorrect. You want to say 20-inch by 2-inch wide with an 8-inch hole. That's just for example. Now that is a Type 1 wheel, and we usually, and I will not usually describe a wheel like this, but when you say Type 1, you can say Type 1A. That means the flat on the OD. Now, if you were to say this is a Type 1N, as in Nancy, that'd be an N face, which would go on an angle head grinder, and it has 2 subsequent angles, which we will also describe later once we get the chart on this video. So this is the Type 1 straight wheel, Type 1A, but it's never described as that. Commonly, wheels are described Type 1, Type 5, Type 7, Type 11. There's probably at least 50 different shapes, and you can do a million variations off those shapes that are standards, but you always want to get a blueprint from the manufacturer and get it, of course, signed off by your customer. That will avoid misinformation and wasted time. The next shape we're going to cover is the Type 5 wheel, which is that purple, and also I've got a smaller version of the Type 5 here. Now this is an internal grinding wheel. You would mount this onto the quill. Actually, it's not a spindle. When you get to ID grinding, it's called a quill that holds this. There's a bolt that goes in this recess. Now that is essentially what describes and makes a Type 5 wheel, is this recess in one side. Now this is a small internal wheel with a recess, so the bolt that you put into this and screw into the quill will hold this wheel on so it doesn't wobble and blow up. Bad news there. This is also a larger version with the recess. This is a 7-inch diameter by 1 inch wide with an 1.25 inch bore. And this recess is 3.25 inch on the ID and a 1/2 inch deep. Now, Typically most manufacturers make that recess 2 3/4 or 3 inch. I like to make it 3 1/4 because you're putting a flange, a locking nut, on the outside of that, and I like to give the guys a little more finger room. So I make this 3 1/4, a little more comfortable because a lot of times you get it somewhat tight and then you use your locking wrench to finish tightening and mounting the wheel. We are going to be doing a video on the proper way to safely mount a grinding wheel, so you can look for that video in the future, short future. Okay, so we're going to go on to the next wheel, which is a Type 7. This is a little bit larger of a wheel, so I may have a little bit harder of a time handling it, but this will describe a Type 7. We just finished a Type 5, which was recessed one side. And of course, you can refer to the Type 5 on the chart. This is a Type 7. It has a recess on both sides. And I do not have the recess marked on this, so I am assuming this wheel is a 12 by 3 inch by 5 inch hole. Again, 12 inch OD, 3 inch wide, 5 inch hole. But the recess dimensions, just because I set up most of the items that we have in our warehouse here, I can estimate that that is an 8 inch ID. And that is, we have 2 different recesses, which is always a possibility. Like I've said, there's many variations you can do, a million variations on geometry, specification, which we'll also do a video on, nomenclature selection. This is probably 1 inch deep one side and ½ inch deep the other side. You get used to seeing them after a while. Again, this is a Type 7, which you can see on the chart, has a recess both sides of the wheel. And next, if you look on the chart, we're going to be bringing in a Type 6 wheel. Now, there's 2 different types of cup wheels. This is a Type 6 cup. The OD on this, doesn't even have the size. Okay, you have your OD, your width, and your hole. But now a Type 6 is different from a Type 5. Most people call this out as a Type 5. That's mistakenly incorrect. This has a rim dimension, which if you stuck a micrometer on this, that would give you your rim dimension and your back dimension. That is the thickness of the bottom of the cup and to the back of the wheel. That's your back dimension, rim dimension. Okay, we're going to describe a Type 11, which is much different from the Type 6. That's real simple. It's a straight cup wheel, what we just showed you. This is a Type 11. So you have 2 different OD dimensions. You call out this point, then this OD. At the smallest point of the angle, that is your other OD. So this would be called, say, for example, not looking at this because I know who uses this right up the street. Thank you, Bill. 7 inch diameter, and then this is a 4 3/4 inch diameter. So you would call this Type 11 out, usually goes on a vertical spindle, or you can use it in a horizontal spindle, ID grinder, surface grinder, etc. You call this OD, the 7, and then a forward slash, then the 4 3/4. So that describes the OD, it'll describe the angle. It lets the manufacturer know right away what dimensions you want and what angle you want by giving them those 2 dimensions. Then you have, again, your width from this face to this face, then your normal 1 1/4 bore, and this one also has a recess on one side. So this technically is called a Type 5 C face, which, because it has an angle on the periphery, constitutes it as a C face. With a recess, you have a Type 5 C face, but whenever you get special shapes like this, I'm telling you, you should get a blueprint confirming with the plant and your customer. That way, everything is correct before you begin manufacturing. Okay, that is a Type 11 flaring cup. One of the last shapes we're going to do on strict grinding wheels, this is a Type 12 called a saucer wheel. Now, this is a complex shape that you're looking at. Has a flat back, has an angular dimension there. This is actually flat at the top, so that has its own dimension. Then this flat has its own dimension. Then the depth of this relief has its own dimension. And then this flat diameter has its own dimension. Very complex shape. This is a Type 12 saucer wheel. One of the wheels that I've used the most of in my career with my old man is a Type 20 wheel. Now that's a very slight variation off the Type 1 wheel, which was straight on the sides, we remember. This wheel has they call it a concave one side. You can see the dish effect that goes to a sharp point. Now there's two variations of this. Most manufacturers will give you a blueprint that has an A dimension. Get rid of the A dimension, everyone, please. That is a flat that you put at the top of this angle. Now the point of the Type 20, and we're gonna actually show some footage from Statewide Grinding, our mother company, that's only a quarter mile away from our 18,200 square foot facility of nothing but grinding wheels. We're going to be doing some footage of the Type 20 actually bumping shoulders. That is the purpose of the Type 20 wheel. You have to have this angle on the side of the wheel. If you're doing a part, say this is mounted on your machine, and that part, you have the pin diameter that you're grinding here, then you have a shoulder. So there's your shoulder pin. Diameter should be in the middle of the shoulder. And then your grinding wheel is hitting that shoulder. So we're essentially grinding the OD of the pin and the shoulder simultaneously. But the problem is having that A dimension there is basically getting your grinding wheel pre-dulled. You want this to be as sharp as possible. The Type 20 I'm especially passionate about. Sometimes you have to take a dressing stone and get all the swarf out and make a resharpened edge, but you want this as fine and sharp as you can. Keep your fingers away, of course, because that is like a spinning razor blade. But once you sharpen it, then you can meet your part shoulder and grind away. If your grinding wheel has been appropriately suggested and you're using the right grade, of course. And then always that angle will go down to a flat spot, which brings me to a general categorization of mounting a wheel. You'll see on the video and the footage from Statewide Grinding, whenever you mount a wheel, there's a existing flange on this side connected to your machine. You're putting this onto the machine against that back flange. Then, once you have it on the machine, you put the outside flange, and that's what the flat spot on the Type 20 is called. So this is a 14 OD, 1.5 wide, 5-inch hole, proper order. Concave, one side, dished, a lot of people call it, I call it a dish. A half-inch deep, my apologies, half-inch deep to an 8-inch flat spot. You have to have that flat spot because you cannot put the outer flange to mount this on the angular portion. It will loosen up, your wheel will loosen up, and it will explode and possibly hurt you. Now the main thing, and we're going to do proper mounting procedures video later on, but I just want to reinforce the most important part of mounting a wheel. When you're holding it before you mount it, that's all you have to do. Now a musician would hear that and call it sustain because it has a note that holds. If the wheel is cracked or damaged, it would sound like that. That's because I'm holding it close. Now when you ring a wheel, you should hold it with the least amount of contact so you can hear that sustain. I know that bad boy is solid. That is a good wheel. I can feel comfortable mounting it. But if it sounds, you have to inspect it. I don't even suggest mounting it at all. Let your supervisor or your owner know that you have a problem with your grinding wheel. Anyway, I hope that clarifies some of the most common grinding wheel shapes that are used in industry. And if you do have any questions, you can check out the info below, contact us at either company, and we're here to answer all and any of your questions. Have a good day, and thank you for your time watching our video.